Crown Produce secures produce locally and from around the world for Canadian retailers. Crown Produce is also proud to secure sponsorship of university football on Shaw. Crown Produce, supporting Canadian retailers and Canadian amateur football. Whether it's your first home, a refinance, or an investment property, Kia Grant & Associates can find a mortgage solution for you. In association with Barico Paragon, the work she does for you is free. Find her on Facebook at Kia Grant Mortgages.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Touchdown BC. I'm Andrew Wadden. Of course, I'm joined each and every week by Ryan Sullivan. And I know what you guys are thinking out there. Look at those two sharp-dressed men in those amazing bow ties.
Look at their bow ties. Tenors singing.
Despite Ryan not really having much of a good voice at all, he can tell you one thing, and that's championship football. Go.
Thank you. Jostens Cup, Windsor, AKO, Fratman taking on the VI Raiders. Let's get right to these highlights. Boom.
The Nanaimo-based kids going for their 10th consecutive win here, and they start out with Ashton Galloway taking the rock for a scamper of 26. Touchdown, VIR, they strike first. The Frat answers back with a triple in the second cue. That scratches the scoreboard. That would be their lone scratching of the scoreboard. Raiders not slowing down. Dylan Chapdelaine with a nice pick here. It pays to be in the right spot sometimes. He takes it back for 6 air miles, soon to be 7 with the extra point. It's 19-3 Raiders at the half. Third cue now, and Jamari Bennett pulls the option to Mike Rashad. He is gone. 55 yards all the way to the house. VI goes up 30 in enemy territory. Moments and or minutes later, and Bennett nails Dylan Schrott in the end zone. This thing getting ugly for the hometown Windsor boys. Arthur Fabro then with a nice little catch and run for another major. That polishes off this game. VI Raiders win the semifinal Jostens Cup and will move on to that Canadian Bowl final.
Calgary hosting UBC. Sean Olsen, Blake Nill, two pretty darn good football teams and two very good running backs. Dr. Goal Line Mercer Timmis and Brandon Deschamps, the underrated beauty, making waves at UBC. Let's get right to the highlights because I have nothing left to say and I look horrible with this haircut.
Calgary Dinos hosting the UBC Thunderbirds in both teams' regular season finale. Pick things up in the first cue. Andrew Buckley out of play action rolls out and finds Mac Sorrow with a nice leaping grab. Dinos scratch the scoreboard first. Brandon Deschamps, the power behind the UBC offense, gets an early wake-up call. Boom! Dr. Kasama. His name is Dr. Kasama. What if he gets a PhD? Doctor? You kidding me? Anyway, Deschamps would figure out the red shirts. He takes this one for 40 yards up the outside. A very nice little drop there. Greg Bocott, well, he does the rest, finding David Scott for a 17-yard score. It's 11-8. T-Birds, they got the lead. However, the doctor decides to operate. No, not Doctor. We're talking Dr. Goal Line here. Mercer Timmis with a nice chunk of change there. He then polishes off the drive from the 4-yard line. Calgary, they're back out in front. Jake Hardy then pulls in a nice toss from Buckley. Steps over the line. Calgary's starting to run away. Buckley then calls zone digit on play action again. He rolls right, and he picks up another major. This one is done. 34-17, the final for Cowtown. The win marks the first time in school history that Calgary has gone undefeated at 8-0. Mercer Timmis with a huge game for the Dinos, 184 yards, and Dr. Goal Line crossed that goal line one time. All right, so here's a look at your Canada West final standings. First place, you got Calgary, 8-0. They were perfect. Now, with Manitoba and Saskatchewan winning this past week and UBC losing, it goes Manitoba second, Saskatchewan third, UBC they're in fourth at 4-4, 500. Now, right below them, that's the cut line. Regina doesn't make it. Alberta, obviously, they're not making it either. Meaning, first week of the playoffs, UBC will stay right where they are. They play Calgary in Cowtown, while Manitoba hosts the Saskatchewan Huskies.
SFU took to the road and lost in Western Oregon in front of a crowd of almost 2,000. 30-16 the final score. Ryan Stanford aired it out for 293 yards and a major for the losing clan. Joe Harris was the man for WO, rushing the ball 15 times for 102 yards, one major in the Western win. Let's take a peek now at the NC2A Division II GNAC standings. SFU with 3 games remaining. Now, according to my boss, I have to retract my statement from last week about me not graduating high school because I did. Really, I did. Belmont was at Handsworth. Let's get to the highlights. Seriously though, kids, stay in school. First play of the game, Royals get cheeky with the onside, and they get it back though. Mike Lemoyne then finds Dylan Wayell, and he finds some good yardage. First and goal, Royals. Lemoyne takes it in himself. Handsworth strikes first. Ensuing kickoff, Handsworth stays greedy, and again they get the football back on the onside kick, and again it leads to a Mike Lemoyne keeper for the major. Ensuing kickoff, Handsworth getting greedy again, and once again they get it back. It leads to this 3-banger, Royals up 17-0 early on. They get greedy once again, but Belmont says, forget it. They wrap it up and march it down the field. Their drive results in a Samuel Vario major, Belmont on the board. Then they go for the, no, I'm just kidding. They kick it off, but the Royals would bring the rock back to pay dirt. Lemoyne with another major on the QB keep. Belmont right back again though. Brandon Holland hits Jordan Worth on the screen pass. Touchdown Belmont, they're back in it. A few plays later, and Worth takes the rock for a gorgeous run right up the can and gets taken down at the 2. Holland then gets wrapped up, but he stays on his feet, clogs his way into pay dirt. Handsworth would get into the red zone, but would have to settle for a triple. However, their kicker, he must have sneezed mid-boot or something. They'd get it back with one last chance, and Lemoyne goes to the air on 4th. Nada. Belmont takes it 24-23.
New Westminster hosting Notre Dame at Mercer Stadium. Early on, Cale Brock takes the handoff from Mackenzie Ratcliffe, and see ya! Touchdown, Hayaks. Ratcliffe then goes to the air and hooks up with Matthew Seymour. Seymour turns it into a pretty decent game, not too shabby. Ratcliffe then calling his own digits, makes a couple of jukes. The QB keeps, and the QB adds a few more points to that scoreboard. Hayaks in the lead on their home turf. Notre Dame would get things going as Theodore Landers hits Aldrich Barrios for the major. Too little, too late though for the Jugglers. 19-14 New West, your final. And now here is a look at the rest of your AAA scoreboard. And here is your AAA standings. We'll take a quick peek now at the AA board. And here are your AA standings.
You know, I wasn't kidding about the graduation thing. Like last week, I was actually kidding, and
I never doubted you for a second.
I can show my diploma if
I was there on graduation day. You were 22, but you did it, and I'm proud of you.
still did it.
Crown Produce secures produce locally and from around the world for Canadian retailers. Crown Produce is also proud to secure sponsorship of university football on Shaw. Crown Produce, supporting Canadian retailers and Canadian amateur football. Whether it's your first home, a refinance, or an investment property, Kia Grant & Associates can find a mortgage solution for you. In association with Verico Paragon, the work she does for you is free. Find her on Facebook at Kia Grant Mortgages. The VI Raiders big winners against the Windsor AKO Fratmen on the weekend in the Jostens Cup, and they will move on to the Canadian Bowl. And the voice of the VI Raiders is Dom Abassi of 106.9 The Wolf in Nanaimo. Dom, thanks for joining us again on TDBC.
Thanks a lot, Jim, and anytime. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's go over that win. It was a blowout. Maybe the blowout wasn't totally unexpected against an OFC team, but Windsor tries to develop their own players. Maybe it could have been closer.
Well, you know what? I wasn't at the game, but I did talk to a lot of people that were. And the firsthand stuff that I heard was that it all started in warm-ups and with preparation. And some of the people I talked to saying that the Raiders have a very structured and a very disciplined warm-up routine, as you would expect from any high-level junior football program. And the people I talked to said that a lot of the Windsor players were just kind of hanging around during warm-up, throwing the balls around, and some of them even chatting with friends and girlfriends in the stands and this type of thing. So right from the start, I think you kind of have two teams on very different wavelengths right off the hop. And the reports that I heard were that the Raiders were a little bit uneasy, perhaps a little unsettled to start the game, and they took a lot of penalties, a lot of 15-yard penalties in the first quarter of that game, and that kept things a lot closer than it probably should have been early. But as the day wore on, you got the feeling that one team was certainly a lot farther ahead than the other.
How did the offense look being piloted by backup quarterbacks?
Well, you know what? It actually ended up becoming a two-quarterback show on Saturday in Windsor because Jaden Marwick looked okay in the first half of that game, but he did not look excellent. And it was actually the Raiders' running game with Ashton Galloway, and this offensive line right now is playing out of their mind. I mean, I have not seen a Raiders offensive line block like this, quite frankly, since the O-line that I was a part of back with Lauren Plant in 2006, and Lauren Plant went on to play in the CFL with the BC Lions in Winnipeg. So it was Ashton Galloway, and it was the rushing game in the first half of the game, and they couldn't be stopped from what I heard. But then the VI Raiders were maybe trying to mix it up, or I don't know, outsmart themselves, tried to move the ball through the air a little bit, and it was a very windy day, and Jaden Marwick was intercepted on two different occasions, and looked a little bit flustered, and it's to be expected. He's just a rookie, straight out of high school. Jamari Bennett came in and took over and played the better part of the second half of the game. And when Jamari Bennett's in there, the Raiders run a lot of an option-style game, and he'll run the ball and keep it himself on a number of occasions, and that was very hard to stop for Windsor.
How is the overall health of the VI Raiders at this point?
From everything that I've heard, pretty good. And obviously, some of the key players are dinged up and bruised, and you don't go through 11 weeks of a season, or I guess they're now through 13 weeks, really. That doesn't happen without guys taking a lot of injuries and bumps and bruises. But I think from everything that I've heard, they're in pretty good shape. There's no key injuries at key spots. And in fact, the only noteworthy injury that I've heard, of course, is Jamie Ybarra with that broken collarbone. And he very well could be healthy enough to play in the Canadian Bowl, which would actually leave the Raiders with three different quarterbacks who have played meaningful minutes in meaningful scenarios this year that could be ready to go for a Canadian Bowl game. So it looks like, especially with the bye week coming up, I don't think that injuries are going to be a big factor leading into the Canadian Bowl. Yeah,
it would be fantastic if Jamie Ybarra, the Offensive Player of the Year in the BCFC, could find his way back into the lineup for the VI Raiders. Before we leave this Jostens Cup game, it was covered on television. That's where we got our highlights from Cogeco and Windsor. But why was there no webcast for people to tune into?
Jim, you know what? I wish I had an answer for you, and there isn't one that makes sense. That's the bottom line. It's unacceptable, in my opinion. I'll tell you what happened from my standpoint was I received an email from a CGFL representative on Tuesday before the Saturday game and basically said, are you planning on going? Are you planning on doing a broadcast? And because of my commitments calling hockey for the radio station here on the island, I couldn't go. I couldn't get out of my commitments to go and call the game, and that seemed to be their only plan, was asking me if I was going to be there to do it or not. And once I said no, there were no plans to webcast this game. And look, the CJFL knew that a team from Ontario was going to be hosting a team from BC before the season even started. They knew that this would be happening. Did they not think that perhaps a team from BC would have a lot of fans that maybe couldn't travel across the country and would want to watch the game? I mean, I don't understand it. And then to not have these level of games on a central platform, on one website being webcasted for everyone who's interested in the junior game to come and check in, it's almost like saying to people who want to be fans, well, sorry, you can't be a fan.
Oh, the challenges of amateur sport in Canada. We're quite well aware of that here at times. Let's take a look at the winner from the Prairie Junior Conference, the Regina Thunder. Are you kidding me? It's always the Saskatoon Hilltops. What happened at Griffith Stadium? They didn't even play this one at the Gordie Howe Bowl.
Yeah, you know what? They're making me eat my words too, because I was on with you last week saying that you never bet against the Saskatoon Hilltops. I would have lost my shirt in that one for sure. What I heard is that the Hilltops starting quarterback was actually injured early in the first quarter of that game. And I also heard from listening to the radio broadcast, the Hilltops radio broadcast, mind you, there was some conjecture that it was a dirty hit that took the quarterback out of the game. And from there, the Hilltops could not move the ball offensively. They didn't score a touchdown until very late in the game. And the the Thunder, their running game, from all reports that I heard, was very tough to stop. They really ran the ball effectively, and with the Hilltops without their starting pivot for much of the game, the Thunder defense was able to keep them under wraps. And first time in 14 years as part of the PFC that the Thunder have won this title, and for the Hilltops not to come out of a PFC final game at home, you said it, I mean, it is stunning stuff.
Yeah, you know, the Regina Thunder were in a position where they had to make a decision. The Saskatoon Hilltops could call the start time of this game. They decided to start the game at noon, Dom. So what the Regina Thunder had to do was stage a mini radiothon. They passed the hat around in Regina and managed to raise enough money to get a hotel room the night before. So they actually staged themselves in Saskatoon, didn't let the Saskatoon Hilltops know where they were in Saskatoon, and then they came into that game refreshed rather than starting in a bus at 5 in the morning, rolling up Highway 2 to Saskatoon. A good move on their part, but I think what it also speaks to is the ability of people in Regina to rally around a team. I think when the VI Raiders head off to Mosaic Stadium, there's going to be an energized crowd in there. There's going to be a lot of support for this team. They love their junior football in Regina.
Yeah, they do. It is a very, very passionate place. And I mean, all you have to do is look at the support for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and it filters on down from there. And the Regina Thunder are a passionately supported team, but that in a lot of ways is Raider country out there. And I know people from Regina are going to hate me saying is very well known in Regina, and it's not very well liked by a lot of people because over the years, Matt Blocker has rolled in there with his recruiting train and rolled out with a lot of high-profile high school recruits, and none bigger than, of course, Jordan Yance, a graduate of Regina's Winston Knoll, a former Wolverine there. And the Raiders have no less than 5 former Winston Knoll Wolverines out of Regina on their roster. Guys like Alex Thompson, Jaden Marwick, Tristan Koronkowitz, who's the younger brother of Jordan Yance. So it's kind of in a lot of ways a very hotbed of Raider football support there in Regina. And because of the location, a lot of families I know are already planning on coming from Winnipeg and coming from the Alberta region as well. So I think this has the potential to be a very well-supported game by the fans. It's unfortunate that at Mosaic Stadium, even if they put 10,000 in there, it's going to look like nothing really.
Yeah, I know. We have the same problem when it comes to Regina Rams games at Mosaic Stadium. Dom, thanks very much for this, and we'll catch up with you on the march to the Canadian Bowl in later episodes of Touchdown BC.
I appreciate you having me, Jim.
We're moving on to linebackers, and we're here with Doug Pauls, defense coordinator with Vancouver College. Been a great help with Team BC for our training camps the last couple of years. And this year was Orange Helmet Community Coach of the Year. So he's going to explain to us a 3-drill progression for linebackers. Our first drill, Doug?
We're working on a rip block shed progression. And so if you look back here, the fellas, we're working on initially hand strike, flip hips, get separation. Then they're going to progress to a rip to get cross face. Then we're going to put it together. So basically what I'm trying to do is break each part of the movement down into functional steps. So we're trying to develop muscle memory skills so that the athletes then can move this at a high tempo in game situations. So the first drill here is simply punch, then rip, then put it together, punch and rip with the pause. And the third part of it is to do this all in one movement. So Coach Conrad is working on that right now with the fellas.
Perfect. So you've given us all 3 drills that you're going to be working on.
No, we got a little more after that.
Okay,
so
good.
This is just the rip drill. So the next drill in terms of we're going to work a little form tackle. So we're working safety tackle, eyes up. So again, we're going to work on a 3-step progression. Right shoulder, left shoulder. So 1, 2, rip hands, grabbing claw, 3, hips through, making sure that all the fundamentals of that movement is sound. Then we'll simply go to a set hit, and they'll do that in one movement. Then we're going to put both of those skills together. We're going to set a slot up, linebacker and a running back, simulating toss, and we're going to simply rip across the toss, rip across the slot's face, simulate a form tackle on the tailback, and then we put a game-ready situation together for the LBs.
Perfect.
So here we go. We're just going to work on hand strike first. So the first thing we're trying to do is work on separation. Give you the ready, give the strike. Ready, strike.
Okay, what are we trying to do here in this first drill?
It's the initial stages of contact for linebacker and making sure they're in a good power position when they step into contact.
I understand as we progress through these various drills, it's going to be another situation of hands and then feet and then everything all together, correct?
Exactly. It's just breaking down the movements. Now they're already moving on to the second step, and it's really coaching the element of contact and the initiation of contact to allow the linebacker to get free and make a play, because obviously a linebacker wants to spend as little time on a block as possible because he's got more important things to take care of.
Okay, let's put the shields down, put on the goal line. We got partner tackle, here we go. Partner up, let's flip. So now the rippers become the scout. Stay. Same group. So just stay. So now we're gonna work on our tackling. Again, we're gonna go a 3-step, right shoulder first. I'll give you the ready, 1, 2, 3. Here we go, ready? Shoulder, elbows back. 1, 2, 3. Good, reset.
So now we're moving on to number 2.
Yes, and they're going to do just a tackle drill, and it's really a big focus of all of football right now is the safety that is being emphasized in tackling and making sure that the initial contact is coached, making sure that the head is not the initial contact piece, that the head is out of the contact, and that we're still able to make an effective tackle. And you can see a couple of the players really emphasizing their head back, really getting that head back. It's called a chest plate tackle, is what it's been coined, to make sure that the chest plate is the first point of contact.
Good. Here we go. Let's transition to our last drill. Here we go. Let's get it. Let's get the backs, get the shields up. Get the backs, get the shields. Here we go. Linebacker. Slot. Here we go. Tail. Position. Here we go. Way out here. So now we're going to put it together. We're going to go rip. Cross face. Here we go. Ready. Go.
Well, this is testing balance, but it's also challenging the tackler to remain compact.
Exactly. Like we said, you saw a nice job on the rip, but it's making sure that what we refer to is that the tackler doesn't get outside of his body. His feet should be underneath his hips, and his arms are tight to his body so that all his power is compact when he's making the tackle or making the deflection of the block.
Yeah, you heard Coach mention that you're on film. Let's make it a little lively. But at the same time, and this is something we're talking about with some of the offensive things that we shot, how much of a benefit is it if you're a high school coach, if you're a community coach, to get this stuff on film so you can show your players what sort of mistakes they're making and how to remedy it?
I mean, the beauty thing about technology now is everybody has film. You know, if you have a camera, you have film. So you're able to take a small piece, and even if it's just off your iPhone or your whatever phone you have, you're able to show the player his body at that contact point, and it's so valuable for them to see what they're doing. It doesn't matter how many times you tell them, until they can see it themselves, it really makes a big difference, and it's almost like the light bulb goes off.
You must have some coaches that are using the iPhone, for example, or the smartphone as something that they can use on the spot as something that's corrective for the player.
A lot of coaches will show it immediately, and that's one of the things with the smartphone, iPhone, that you can show them immediately in the same drill. And it's taking a little bit away from the drill, but it's also adding to the drill. So it's that fine line that you can pick a practice or two that you want to do it in a week and say, hey, this is a practice we're going to show some feedback to, really hammer this point home and take a little bit out of the reps, the muscle memory, but add to the visual and them being able to get that feedback.